I've once heard someone say that getting a master's is the most unhealthy thing you can do to yourself.
Yes. Who told you that? Me?
Welcome to Coach 'em Up. I'm Tim Riley. I'm joined as always by Zach Zillner.
Welcome.
And today we're super thrilled to have Natalie Kollars. It's like dollars, but with a K.
Coach Dollars.
Coach Dollars. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
How's the hand today?
Thank you for asking. We're still in a little bit of rough shape, but it's healing already.
So yesterday, as a part of our training series, Natalie was kind enough to join us in a workout. And as a byproduct of her being an absolute savage, she was deadlifting like double her body weight for many reps, and she caught a casualty.
I really don't remember. I don't know if I've ever actually
Torn a callus,
but
honestly,
it might
like,
be a first.
Well, we talked about this. Like, if you're gonna tear a callus somewhere, do it on the Train 'em Up series on the Coach 'em Up
And followed it
podcast.
up with a bunch of pull-ups.
Yeah.
after.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and she also
Yeah.
cranked out
Program
10
design.
full range of motion chin-ups, like elite. I'm excited for y'all to see the workout.
If you have an open wound, let's do pull-ups.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like all new equipment, so it still has like the greasy stuff on it. That probably explained the burning.
Yeah, it feels good.
It'll be all right. It'll be all right.
All right, so we know who you are. We've been hanging out all weekend. Maybe not everyone knows who you are who's listening to us. So for the people who don't know who the hell you are,
Yeah.
can you give us like the elevator pitch? Who is
Sure.
Natalie Kollars?
Yeah. I grew up in Toronto, in Canada.
Toronto?
Toronto.
Toronto.
Don't pronounce the second T.
Okay.
Why put it in there?
I'm not sure, but maybe we could talk about badminton.
Toronto.
Badminton. Badminton.
We're at an impasse here.
Yeah. Okay. This has nothing to do with me. This is a conversation we had yesterday about how we pronounce things, and there's a couple differences.
And how
but
Canadians are objectively
Yes.
wrong when it comes to
depends on who you're talking to.
So
Anyways.
Toronto.
So Toronto.
Okay, so I grew up in Toronto. I played college soccer and studied kinesiology in undergrad. And that's really, we can dive into this, I'm sure, later, but that's where I fell in love with the world of sports performance.
Yeah.
I moved down to Arizona after undergrad and did 2 internships with Exos, one regular performance specialist one, and then an NFL combine specific one. And then I moved to Louisville, Kentucky. And
You said that one right.
Yes.
Louisville.
Okay.
Louisville.
We can all agree.
You nailed that.
Yes. Okay. I was going to grad school and I said Louisville and they're like, oh, no.
No.
Get
You
out.
have to say it like your mouth's full. And I was like, huh? So I moved to Kentucky, very different than Arizona and Toronto. I did grad school there and studied exercise phys and strength and conditioning and was a grad assistant there. And then I moved to Los Angeles for 2 years, worked with a coach that I knew from Exos named Brett Bartholomew.
Just some guy named Brett.
Yeah,
Bartholomew.
just
No
this
big
guy. So yeah, he had moved out there while I was in grad school, and he was the performance director of a startup facility out in Los Angeles, like right in the Hollywood Hills. He hired me and I moved out there. So we were both out there for about 2 years. I know, I remember like getting in my car with my dad to drive from Kentucky to Los Angeles. And I'm like, first job, whatever. Actually, even before that, I got on a flight to go to my interview and like got off in LAX. And I'm like, this is probably the biggest airport in the world. Like, where am I?
Yeah.
Just super exciting. But anyways, so I moved out there, was out in Los Angeles for about 2 years. And then I always had the goal of moving back to work for Exos. So the opportunity came up in 2017. Moved back to Arizona, and I was there for about 6 years. And then last summer, left and branched out to start my own company, which is called Fortis. So that's kind of like my performance journey in a nutshell.
What a stud. So now, at your time at Exos, can you tell us a little bit about all the responsibilities and things that you had there? Because
Yeah.
you are a savage.
I appreciate you. I don't know about that. So yeah, when I first was hired, my main responsibility was to work with their youth I guess not even college at the time, their youth soccer program.
Okay.
So they partner with a lot of high level soccer clubs.
Yeah.
High school athletes, mainly females. And the athletes basically come in before or after practices 2 to 3 days a week to train. And so that was kind of like my main responsibility. When you work there, though, you do a little bit of everything often. Right. There's so many different populations at that facility, everything from general population to youth athletes, college, and then obviously a really big pro population as well. I grew up watching American football and like always had a huge passion for it. I did the NFL Combine internship like as one of my first things with Exos and always had the desire to get back to that population. And so I made that known, not too soon of like, this is the only reason why I'm here by any means.
Right.
That wouldn't have been true, but like, this is what I eventually want to do.
Yeah.
And so there was a coach there at the time who actually, so his name's Jonathan Barlow. I call him Johnny. I think I'm the only person in the world that calls him this. I don't know why.
Shout out Johnny.
Shout out Johnny. Yeah. And I feel like we'll probably talk about mentors at some point during this. But like he was still is one of my biggest mentors in our industry. So he was actually the house dad. So Exos used to have, way back when it was Athletes Performance, which is what it was when my first internship. So they used to have an intern house. All the interns, obviously you're not getting paid like by money. We talked about this yesterday. You're getting paid in knowledge, which is worth more than anyways. So, but they put you up in an intern house. And so everybody lives
all
like
the interns
2 miles
in a house.
Yeah, all the performance interns live
MTV
like 2
road
miles.
rules.
Yeah, it's so fun.
MTV
Shout out to all the old people that know what that is.
Yeah. Wait, what did you say?
MTV Road Rules.
I don't even know what that is.
They're out-
Okay.
Oh, wow. Come on. MTV.
Come on.
These people all lived in a house. It was like first reality
They like
TV
pumped
show.
them all
like the
full of
real
liquor.
world?
And there
Real
was, like,
world, yeah.
Okay.
Real
Okay.
world.
Totally.
Okay.
Yes. You got it.
I'm familiar.
So Exos Real World was you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Episode
Well,
1.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So, we lived like 2 miles from the facility, and they always had an Exos employee, like often coach, living there to like basically be the intern house mom or dad to, keep things in line.
Sure. Yeah. To keep
And-
it from turning into the real
Exactly.
world. Right.
Yeah.
Theoretically. Yeah.
Exactly. Did a really good job of that. So Johnny was our house dad.
Okay.
And he was actually my mentor. Or not mentor, like he became mentor, but he was my assigned coach.
Okay.
So you ended up working with every coach in some capacity, but just schedule wise. And we all know this now, it works better if you have like an intern that you can kind of build a relationship with and you get to know the coach and how they like things set up and all that. So Johnny was not only my house dad, but he was also the coach that I was assigned to for that first Exos internship. So fast forward to me being an employee there, he was thankfully still there. And he ran their NFL offseason program when I got there. So through conversations with him, obviously he was someone that I, made it known to that that's something that I wanted to progress into without being like, hey, I want your job, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
And knowing like for as long as he's with the company, it'll either be like both of us or him.
Yep.
Like there's no way I was gonna like come in and take Johnny's job.
Right.
But yeah, so I co-coached with him for an off season and a half. And then him and his family moved back to Canada. And so I was able to take over that responsibility. So that's kind of like how I
Epic. And so
got
you
into
ran
that
it,
role.
I guess, as the big shot, the head coach for 5.5 off seasons then?
Not quite that long. So about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust me, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
God, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was great. So that's kind of like the journey of
Preparation
like
meets opportunity.
Yeah.
it was. And there was, I probably talk about this a little bit more later with some of the discussions. I feel like that will come up inevitably. But when he was leaving, there was like some decisions to be made of who was going to take over that responsibility.
Yeah.
And
How'd you put yourself in kind of the driver's seat? Because I know everyone's like vultures with that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
100%.
So-and-so's leaving.
Yeah, there was
Interviewing.
exactly. It just ended up being basically that there was kind of like a reorg right at the same time that he was leaving.
Interesting.
So it didn't end up being that like, all right, she's been co-coaching with Johnny. He's leaving. She's the person.
Because that would make sense.
Yeah, that would be too logical.
Yeah. So there were some conversations to be like that were to be had that I had to advocate for myself, and thankfully had other people in the company advocate for me as well.
Yep.
Yeah, because sometimes I think the people that are the decision makers aren't always with a company that big. They're not always in the facility
on the
every
floor
day.
watching you coach,
Yeah.
lead groups.
So the decision makers, nothing against them. They hadn't seen me coach those groups for co-coach with him, and so thankfully I was able to get awarded that responsibility.
How'd you fight for that, being like a younger coach?
Yeah.
In that space.
Just conversations and like communicating clearly what I brought to the program, what we had done together co-coaching, what I had learned under him, my plans for the program. Just speaking honestly of like, obviously this isn't my final decision, or I'm not the person making the final decision, but this is why I think that I'm the right person for the job. It turned out that I was.
I want to rewind a little bit and then eventually get into, the conversation of mentors and the impact it's had on you. But, you said something about playing soccer.
Yep.
And then that's where you fell in love with performance. Why? Like what about that experience was like, oh, this is it.
So when I was in high school, I grew up in an active family. When I was in high school, I would go to the YMCA and do like random exercises, like cardio, kind of a little bit of weights, but had no idea what I was doing. And then when I got to college, that was the first time that I had a dedicated strength coach. Like I didn't grow up in going to a facility like Collective or whatever in high school getting performance.
You were your
training.
own coach in YMCA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing like awesome lateral raises and things like that. Had a huge impact. Yeah. So when I got to college and I had my first strength coach, I was studying kinesiology. So I was learning like the science behind things. And then I was experiencing the performance program as an athlete. And I was just blown away by the impact that it had on me as an athlete and then just like me as a person, confidence wise and all that. And so it kind of, the world of sports performance or coaching, and like the reason why I became a coach is it really like combines three of my big passions. So, the science side, like the learning how to optimize human performance and learning about the human body and all that. And from like a proactive, like health standpoint. So not even necessarily like high performance sports, but just high performance, like health. My passion for communication and learning about people and building relationships and like the person behind the athlete, and then my competitive side.
Yeah.
So you guys probably saw yesterday.
We definitely saw yesterday.
Yeah.
We won't talk about the results, but we all did race multiple times.
Well,
but in Natalie's defense, you may have had the best looking plyos by a long shot.
Yeah.
Per bound.
I need to get back to my plyo game. That this morning I'm like, you know what, you can do a lot better than what you showed yesterday.
I mean,
well, luckily we got it on tape.
I think we'll have to go back and review this.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. We'll rewatch the film for sure.
I think everyone did good.
Yeah, everyone did fine. But if I'm like, I need someone to demonstrate how bound is
easy.
It's Natalie.
Easy.
All right, sign me up.
Shit was elite.
Easy.
It's very impressive.
I didn't have a torn Achilles.
This is true.
Not an excuse.
That's true. That is also true.
You talked about mentorship, and for me, and getting to the place where I'm at, invaluable. In fact, like you and Zach both have a history of traditional learning in terms of like degrees, and you got your master's, correct? You're just That's incredible. I've once heard someone say that getting a master's is the most unhealthy thing you can do to yourself. Would you agree with that?
Why did they say that?
So the logic around that being that for that time period, your life is so consumed
100%
with that process that basically every other part of you as a human being starts to deteriorate.
Yes. Who told you that? Me? Can we talk
Is
about
that the first?
We read your diary yesterday.
Is this the first time?
Yeah, perfect.
Is this the first time you've heard?
Someone hacked my phone. Your diary. It is
Let's look at the GA chapter.
2014.
Right. I'm trapped in Louisville.
Yeah.
The classes are still getting more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the first time you've heard that.
So I don't know if anyone's ever said it like that, but I don't necessarily disagree. It was like the best and worst thing I ever did.
Yeah.
I think being a female in the field, and just wanting, I guess separate from being the gender thing, but being a female and wanting to accomplish everything that was, I had set out to do. I knew I wanted to go to grad school. And I wanted to ideally do it pretty much after my internships because I didn't want to have to go back, if that makes sense.
For sure.
And so when I was looking for grad schools, I feel like this is a question that I get a lot, but when I was looking for grad schools, I wanted to do a course-based master's rather than thesis, just because research is like a whole other, there's nothing wrong with it, but that's a whole other beast.
Woof.
Totally.
And I wanted to get a grad assistant position. So Louisville had a strength and conditioning specific course-based master's.
Oh, sweet.
And I got the grad assistant, sports performance grad assistant.
And who was the coach you worked under?
So I worked on the Olympic sports, and Tina Murray was the director of sports performance. And so, so thankful for the opportunity. So glad I did it. I'm really glad I did do it right away, after, and didn't wait. Because it was extremely taxing on everything that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
I always joke, it's not a joke, it's actually what I did. But my first task of the day for 2 years, pretty much 6-7 days a week, was to make 200 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with an intern.
Yeah.
And we made them.
It's a good use of your education, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We made them.
It's very Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Peanut
Peanut
what
butter
is
on,
that?
jelly on.
You know the Karate Kid, the wax on, wax off?
Okay, so I'm really not good with.
We'll download it for the
shows,
flight home.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
You'll report back.
Yes.
Okay, I'll report back.
That'll be your flight home movie to watch.
Okay. I'm so
Your life will
excited.
be changed.
So me and an intern would, in this little what do you even call it? It was almost like a concession stand type thing where the thing would roll up and people would come up and order stuff. But so we would be in there and the side of the field hockey stadium, which was also where the sports performance facility was.
Okay.
It's kind of all in one. We would be in that little concession stand that I don't think there was heat in there. So in the
Checks
winter,
out.
there's a little not
Cold
press.
PB&Js.
We would be in there, and that's how I started my day for 2 years, very early in the morning.
Can you eat PB&Js now? Do you have
So
it down to
I've
an
always
art?
joked
What's your
that-
go-to? More
yeah.
peanut butter, less jelly? What are you?
Well, definitely more peanut butter than
Yeah.
jelly, but I always joke that my future kids will be like, "Hey, Mom, can I get a peanut butter and jelly?" And be like, "Nope,
Absolutely.
you can make it
not.
yourself."
Yeah.
I made over 200 sandwiches.
That's literally what I said.
5 miles there and 5 miles
Yeah, but anyway,
Mom, I'm hungry. Can I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Fuck no.
you can't.
The answer's no.
Yeah. But anyways, that's how I started my
Go
day.
ask
And
your
then,
father.
Yeah, exactly. And then the rest of it was, jam packed between being in the weight room and going to class and all that, which is needed, I think, though, at that time of your career. Maybe not necessarily to quite that level, but the hours spent just learning, listening, making mistakes, learning how to program, all that, working with so many different sports was just invaluable. So definitely taxing, definitely everything that you mentioned, but also a great experience. I think definitely still value.
Being a GA or an intern is kind of if you want to run your own Chick-fil-A franchise, they make you start at the lowest position at Chick-fil-A and work your way up. And I think it's invaluable, like you said, you were literally had your master's or getting your master's and you're making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, setting up the weight room, working with all these different teams. And then now where you are now, you know how everything should run from the peanut butter and jelly station all the way to leading a group, which I think is invaluable.
Yeah, I do too. It was definitely worth it. It wasn't easy, but it's really not supposed to be, I guess.
You know, when you were talking about your work history and experience, you dropped a couple of big names in terms of coaches and people that you've worked with and had the opportunity to learn from. Can you talk about the impact mentorship or working with others has had on you and your career? And I would also like to ask a follow-up question now so you can think on it while you're discussing it.
Yeah.
What has been more impactful for you as a coach? Mentorship or traditional education?
Yeah. Great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first one of mentorship, I think that, when I was in undergrad and deciding like what I wanted to do, career-wise, I knew I loved this, but I knew nothing about what this field looks like, really. I guess I don't know if anyone does, but like you haven't experienced it yet, so you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So my first mentor in Canada at my undergrad, or that I met during undergrad, he was the director of sports performance at my college. It's called McMaster University. We talked about this yesterday. Okay, so his name's Steve Lidstone, and it was like partway through undergrad, and he asked me like, "What do you want to do, basically, for a career?" And I'm like, "I think this, but like, what the heck do I do now?" kind of thing. And he was the one that recommended Athletes Performance, Exos, and he had met a gentleman named Jonathan Brooks, who I believe is still with the Los Angeles Chargers. I think. Anyways, he was the gentleman that I ended up interviewing with. And Steve put me in contact with him of like, hey, you should do an internship. This is the best place to do an internship. It's thorough. It's like system-based, whatever. And this is where their locations are. This is what you'll be doing. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to like move to another country.
Right.
This is exciting, but like, what the heck? Okay, like sign me up, I guess. If it wasn't for him to like kind of start me off on the right path of you need to go learn, you need to learn from the best, you need to like basically just dive right in and do this, none of my career would have played out the way that it did.
Yeah.
So that was huge. Having that direction, having that, like, he was just so confident of like, this is the place that you need to go. So that was my first mentor. He just kind of helped like bring my passion to light throughout undergrad. And was always like really encouraging to females. And he let me know from the beginning, like, this is definitely a male dominated field. And I just want to let you know that it's probably not going to be easy. And I was like, that sounds great. That's fine.
Even better.
Yeah.
And you know,
sign me up.
Side note, to get back to it, since we're on the topic of it, like what has your experience been navigating?
Yeah.
What is just, it is what it is. It's a male dominant
100%. Yeah. And I feel like some people you talk to are like, oh, we shouldn't ask the female what it's like, because it's like, but it's the elephant in the room. Like, obviously, it's different being a male versus a female. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think that in general, I don't think of it differently. I don't think of like, you guys are male coaches and I'm a female coach, and that's a huge difference. That being said, there are differences. And I think that it's important to recognize them. I think that the way that you conduct yourself, I mean, again, obviously you can't like conduct yourself like an ass if you're a male, but like the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you dress, the way that you, what you ask questions about, conversations that you have with athletes, needs to be professional and needs to be done in a way of like, I'm here for the right reasons. Because if it becomes known that you're not there for the right reasons, you're toast.
Yep.
Do you feel like you have to be overly professional compared to like your male counterpart?
Yeah, and I really don't like those comparisons because I feel like I never want to send the message of like it's harder or like anything like that. But
it is different.
It's different.
Yeah.
And so, yes, to answer your question, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't meaning that as like a cop-out
I know
or
you
anything
weren't.
like that. I just mean like it's no different than if you're a young coach, you're probably going to need to be more, serious or dialed in than like an older coach who's more established. And then you being a female, there's probably certain things that Tim and I can probably get away with that you can't because, double standard or whatnot. And what are different things to kind of make sure that you are taking, your credibility is through the roof?
Yeah. I think that, how you show up is so important. I think that people are smart and they can read you right away.
Sure.
And so I've never really worried about that too much because my heart and intentions are in the right place. And so it's just a matter of like showing up authentically and being me.
Yeah.
And knowing that that's going to be good enough. That being said, I think that, and this kind of goes back to the conversation of who was going to get that role when Johnny moved on. Like it or not, especially in a role like leading an NFL offseason program at a place like Exos, anywhere, people are not expecting to see females. There's really, if you look across the whole country, there's probably not many females that are the lead on an NFL offseason program at a private facility.
Yep.
And so it's just not the norm. And so, like it or not, athletes and other staff members are not expecting to see a female. And so when they think of who's going to take over that role, or when an athlete shows up and they think of like who's going to be taking over, who's going to be coaching them, they're not expecting to see me.
Right.
They're just not. And so it's important when they do see you or you are awarded that position that you crush it. It's like the Tom Brady thing, right?
Totally.
Like had he gone in and shit the bed,
Right.
It doesn't matter now who he
you
ended
get
up
one
being.
strike in that
You
position.
get one strike.
Yeah.
And so having, I think that I always say this to my interns of like your demos are maybe the most important thing. If you can get in front of a group of 30 NFL guys and demonstrate a dynamic warm up, all your sprint drills, whatever it is for that day, like with perfection basically and intent, you'll get their buy-in almost faster than like anything you could say.
So you're saying you got to walk the walk a little
You
bit.
100%.
I know what she's saying is the truth because I saw them fucking bounds yesterday. She can move.
Yesterday it was funny because we were all like joking around. They were like, you lead the warm up, and then it was like, boom.
Bang.
And then
Switch flipped.
just like very concise, very intentional with everything. The demos were perfect. I'm like, all right, now I get why you do what you do.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like you just turn it on like that,
And
which
to
I think is
piggyback
cool.
off what he's saying, you strike me as someone, you're type A, you're prepared, you're organized, you're professional, you're to the point. Those are all skills. Were you always like that? Or is it something that you had to craft over time or a little bit of both?
I've always been type A. I've always been organized. I think you mentioned the word concise, I think. I think that's something that I, again, talk to my interns a lot about and I think is super important. It falls into this conversation of when you are communicating to athletes, you need to be super concise, super confident, about what you're saying and how you're saying it. And you basically need to be able to explain what you want them to do in like 5 words.
Totally.
Like if you stand up in front of them and you're like fumbling over your words and trying to figure out, they're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah. Who is this motherfucker?
They're elite.
Yeah.
They're elite. They're the best of the best.
Right.
Or if they're a college athlete or a high school, they're striving to be. Regardless, they're coming to you to learn.
Yep.
And if you don't know what the hell you're talking about, or even if you do, but it doesn't sound like you do, it's not coming across
Unsure,
like you do.
not, yeah.
Yes, you've lost them.
100%.
And so I think that's the preparedness and all that. But to answer your question directly of like, have I always been this way? That's something that I learned early on in my coaching that I need to get better at, was like, I have all these things that I'm so passionate about that I want to share, that I want to communicate to my athletes. It's like, you can't tell them everything right now.
It's like, what's the most important cue? I know there's 10 of them, but like, let's work on your foot first before your knee and your hip and all that stuff. Yeah.
And so Nick Winkleman's another one of my mentors. He was the
great.
speed coach.
Yeah.
Just awesome coach and person. He was the speed coach for Combine when I was a Combine intern. And I remember him, so I did my summer internship. I went home for like 2 to 3 months. 2 to 3 months. And I remember when I was at home, I just had this feeling of like, that was the best experience of my life, being at that facility with those coaches and all that. And I just like want more of it.
Yes.
Like, I know I can't get a job there yet because it's just not reality, but like, how can I get back there? And so I started talking to a few people that work there and whatever. And they're like, they bring people back to do Combine internships. And I was like, no way. Like,
Sign
all
me
right,
up. Yes.
let's go.
Go.
Yeah. And so I remember calling, I think it would have been Brett at the time. And him saying like, all right, well, he coached their NFL offseason then, this before Johnny. And I hadn't worked with Nick or Dennis Logan, who's also another one of my mentors, awesome coach. I hadn't worked with either of them during my first internship, so I did not know them. So anyways, I remember Nick calling me and saying like, we've never had a female. Like, first of all, do you know anything about American football? And thankfully I did.
Play fantasy football religiously.
Yeah, exactly. So he was saying like, we've never had a female. This is what it's going to be like. This is what I'm going to expect out of you. Like all these things. And so thankfully he trusted to bring me down. And in working with him, he's so intelligent. I think he has like literally a photographic memory. But he also, the way that he takes all of that and then demos and communicates it to the athlete is genius. And I think it was him. I could be taking this from maybe it was actually Brett. Anyways, one of them told me an analogy of like, imagine that you are getting in your car and you're turning on your GPS and you're trying to drive from, let's just use this, Scottsdale to Austin. Your GPS doesn't tell you every single turn that you need to take to get from Scottsdale to Austin, like when you get in your car. It tells you like, take a right onto Scottsdale Road,
right,
and then merge onto, you know what I mean? And so he was like, I think actually it was Brett now that I'm thinking it through, but he said like, your cues and your coaching should be like that. Give them one thing to do and then watch them. Like, don't overwhelm them. And that was something that I worked on a lot early on. That is so simple, but makes a world of a difference to the athlete that you're coaching.
I think what you just talked about, that I feel like that anyone who's been in a leadership role, regardless of the industry you're in, but particularly in coaching or teaching, it's like this shared experience so many of us have, where when you first start off, you have all this information and you want to share it. And you think that by proving to everyone that you know all this information, that it's going to be helpful or beneficial. And actually, it's just like, dude, shut up, nerd.
Yeah, if you give 10 cues, they're going to fix all 10 and be perfect on that.
Yeah, and like really what I think it comes down to is like, am I doing this because I'm actually interested in helping you, or do I need to prove to myself that I know what I'm talking about?
Or whoever's watching you, or
what's really going on here?
Yes. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So that was something that thankfully I had guidance on, because it's a game changer if you're the athlete. Obviously, we've all experienced it, of a coach like, let me tell you 500 things, and you're like, I heard the first thing. So
yeah, Coach 'em Up is proud to be sponsored by Plyomat. Plyomat is a jump mat that measures ground contact times, vertical jump height, and reactive strength index.
Plyomat's trusted by over 750 coaches in 25 different countries.
It's something that you can use in training day in and day out to give immediate feedback and drive output and intent.
Plyomat's always in stock. When you order your Plyomat, you can get it within 1 to 3 business days and start your training immediately.
If you get a group of athletes challenging each other to jump higher, get off the ground quicker, it transforms that workout into a highly competitive, highly potent stimulus.
If you would like access to the best jump mat on the planet, use Coach 'em Up 5 to get 5% off at checkout.
Again, code CoachEmUp5 for 5% off. Come jump with us. Get a Plyomat.
The Coach 'em Up podcast is sponsored by Squat Wedgies. Tim, what are squat wedgies?
Squat wedgies are an adjustable squat wedge, 7, 13, and 20 degrees.
It's big enough to elevate your whole foot and not just your heel.
Because it's rubber, it doesn't slide on surfaces.
It's 22 pounds, so it's durable and stable enough for even your biggest athletes.
There's a 90-day risk-free trial. The shipping is free, and
get 15% off squat wedgies with our discount code CoachEmUp15.
CoachEmUp15 for 15% off of the best squat wedge on the planet.
Did you feel pressure at all when they were like, we've never had a woman in this role? Did you kind of feel the pressure of like, if I screw this up, they may never give another woman a chance? Or were you even thinking that that you're just like, I'm going to do a great job, who cares?
I've always thought of like, that's one of the things that so again, back to the conversation of like, should we talk about it? It's like, yeah, of course we should. It's the elephant in the room, and I think it's important. I've always thought that it's a cool responsibility, and obviously I'm not the only one. There's plenty of other extremely successful females that we all have this responsibility of opening doors for future females.
Yep.
And that's always what I've focused on, is like, do a good job for obviously just who you're servicing and what you're trying to do, but also hopefully, open doors and show that it's possible for other females to come in. So I think it's the minority, or like the not as many females in the field has always been something that's been exciting to me, and something that I've been like, game on, like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh shoot, like if something goes wrong, or maybe I'm not meant for this, whatever. That's always been something that I've embraced and really enjoyed. That's been my mentality.
What do you think are some advantages being like a female coach?
Okay, so this is interesting too, and I definitely don't want this to come off the wrong way, because obviously, like, there's stereotypes and there's reasons for stereotypes, and it doesn't fit everyone.
Right.
But I remember, so again, back to Nick Winkleman, he's now lived in Europe for years, obviously, like over in Ireland, but him and his wife, they had just their first child. Her name's Gracie, I think. Oh my gosh, imagine I just messed that up. I'm like 99.9% sure.
A child.
They have a child. So him and his wife, Brittany, they're listening to this. They're like, okay, cool. You messed up our child. Anyway, so him and Brittany would invite me over sometimes for dinner after work. And this is when, I don't know if you guys know this about Nick, but he's, I think he still does. He's into DJing. He's an awesome DJ.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So it was actually hilarious. We would like eat dinner. I know. We would eat dinner, and then they would put Gracie to bed. And I'm like panicking that that's not her name. I'm pretty sure it is. We're just going to call it. I'm sorry if it's not.
Baby G.
To bed. And then he would DJ, and it would be like the loudest music, and she would just sleep through it. It was like mind blowing to me. But anyways, him and Brittany and I would sit out in their backyard and talk about life and coaching. And I was like just that sponge, right? Of like still kind of in disbelief that I'm like getting the opportunity to learn from him at work,
DJ
but
set.
also,
Yeah.
have a dance party. To get to like learn from him and his wife of just like life.
Yeah.
And he mentioned to me, I think it was like week 3 or 4, and he was like, I think the guys actually listen to you more than they listen to me. And I was like, I literally laughed. I was like, okay, is this some kind of like, are you mocking me? Like, there's no way that they listen to me more than they listen to you. I knew almost nothing about sprinting at the time. I mean, I ran track in high school, so like I could run well and demo well, but like in terms of a coach's eye, I hadn't developed that yet. I would watch film with him and like see something and not really necessarily see it the right way. Like I was really still learning about running and cueing and how things should actually look. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, there's certain athlete populations that were raised.
I was just about to.
More by women than men. And again, I don't want this to come off the wrong way. He didn't mean it in any bad way.
Yeah.
It's just a reality that there's going to be certain people that grew up in that way.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I think you're nurturing like nature being a female and your slightly different approach to building trust in relationships with them and maybe the way that you communicate or maybe just like they're used to talking
There's
to
an inherent
female.
level of more comfortability.
Yeah.
Yeah. An easier access level of trust.
Yeah. And so he was like, use that to your ability in coaching. And I was like, wow, I would never have like thought of that, noticed that, whatever. And I don't think he's wrong. I think that it's just a different approach.
Well,
to
you've got a perfect
training.
example of that right now. My mother raised me and my brother.
Okay.
And you can ask Kelly. She knows I work so much better with women. If I do, I really do. I have a natural comfortability working with and around women in the workplace more so than I do dudes.
Interesting.
And it's because my mom raised us. My
Right.
dad was just,
Sure.
he was just like a ghost,
Sure.
So I'm one of those people where I'm much more inclined
Yep.
to, if a woman tells me to do something, I'm like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas like this, a man, same age,
You're
same
like,
everything, says something, I'm like, you
whatever,
don't know what the
buddy.
fuck
Yeah,
you're
whatever,
talking
buddy.
about. You don't know, dude.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Yeah, I do. I have
That's
that natural, that's just a part of who I am. So I can resonate with that point of view and that, frankly, reality.
Yeah.
Of just, you never know where people come from, their background, their histories. And I think that to assume that one effective communication style or how everyone's going to respond to a person is just kind of like, that's a miss.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
It is funny, like when we've worked in rooms with multiple coaches, like multiple performance coaches, and which athletes gravitate more towards Tim or you or me, and it's kind of cool to see that.
Yeah,
and as long as the
absolutely.
job gets done, it's like if they want to go to Nat for all their cues, like
Cool.
as long as they get done, sweet. Yeah.
Sure. And I think that that brings up another thought of mine of it's like so cliche to sound, or when you say it, it sounds cliche of like, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's like, okay, that sounds so lame, but it actually is so true. When I was in grad school, I took over the diving team. Never worked with diving. It was like a small team at Louisville. Their swim team was like unbelievable. Their dive team, it was like swimming and diving, so technically they're all on the same team, but there weren't that many divers. And the diving team was always, I guess, passed around to like the grad assistant, the new coach.
Got
like,
it. They were getting the short end of the stick consistently.
They never had, like every year they had someone new.
The dive team funding wasn't as much as the other. Yeah.
Yes. And so there was a senior, going to be a senior, because I started in the summer. And I remember she was working out in the weight room, and I went over and introduced myself like, hey, my name's Coach Natalie. I'm going to be your sports performance coach this year. And she looked at me and she was like, all right, like basically
Another
like,
one.
like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm doing my program. Like, you're bothering me, like whatever. And I was like, all right, like have a good workout. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, great. This is the senior. This is like someone that I need to
Be on your side.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was
She's like, beat it.
yeah, I'm like, perfect. Welcome to Louisville. So I'm like, all right,
made the
I gotta
right
win this girl
choice.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I gotta build a relationship with this girl somehow. And she does not want to work with me. Like, she doesn't want to work with anyone, basically.
Right.
And so, slowly over her summer of being there on her program from the last coach and me settling in there, whatever, I just slowly made it known how much I genuinely cared about helping her and the other members on her team of like, I know this is your senior season, but like, let's make the most of it type thing. So anyways, I started going to her practices and talking to her coach and watching her dive and seeing what she was good at and what she wanted help with, which at the time was probably nothing, but like how I could maybe help.
Yeah.
And slowly I won her over per se of like, okay, this person actually cares. I don't know what the people in the past did, but I'm assuming they didn't go to her practices. I'm assuming they didn't like take an interest in her as a person. And before I had even really written any programs for her or been with her for long enough to make any performance changes, she did a 180 and she was like all in. So I'm like, she doesn't care like what I program for a squat scheme.
She just wanted to see that you were willing to invest your time
100%.
into her, and then she was gonna.
100%.
Which to your point of like going to practice, like if you're in the collegiate setting and work with multiple teams, like they keep track of like if you're always at basketball practice and never at track or whatever. But if you can just set aside that even 20 minutes to stick your head in and watch them do what they do, great. Like it's such a good connecting point.
Yeah.
Than just like I just see you in the weight room. Have a nice life.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Like
cool.
an assembly line. You know what? You got my wheels turning, Natalie. Like, in thinking about they don't care until they know how much you do. It's like so much about what you explained is like, yeah, and I think almost always that's taken as from like just the purely human level. Like I'm invested.
right,
I care about you.
Right.
But when you were talking, I couldn't help but think about the other side. Was like, do you give a shit about your job? Like, do you want to be good?
Right.
Do you want to do a good job?
Yep.
And I think also too, there's an aspect of that where it's like, you're showing up to her practices, you're going above and beyond, and you're building trust, obviously, in the person. But what that tells me is like, oh, she means fucking bit. Like I'm about to get trained for real.
Right.
Like this is someone who wants to get results with me, who wants to help me get better, and that matters to them. They care about that
100%.
And I mean, I don't know about, I'm sure you guys would resonate with this, but I don't give a damn if I'm working with a housewife or a pro bowler. If they want to be there, if they want to work, 100%. Dude, oh, I'm getting fucking goosebumps. Literally talking. I'm getting ready to get myself to run through a wall. You know what I mean? Straight up. Like, if you want to be there and you're invested, I will. All of my time, you have 110% of my focus and attention.
Agreed.
But when I see that you don't give a fuck about being here,
they know.
It's like, okay, well, me too.
Yep.
You know,
exactly.
now I don't do that because I'm a professional, but
I need to get paid. But
right. Yeah. Please keep coming. Yeah. But also, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So I share that because I see both of those things.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, they're both.
At the end of the day, if you want your program to work, if a kid's 100% invested, no matter how trash or whatever the program is, if they dive into it, you're going to be in a great position.
Puns everywhere, big puns. That was awesome.
No, I agree with you entirely. And so I think that rings true of like to coaching the NFL guys and not being who they necessarily thought was, they're not, expecting to see me.
Yeah.
If
you talk about commanding that room.
Yeah. Things I was kind of thinking about, obviously, like leading up to this podcast, and that was one of them. One of the biggest things that I learned being in that role is the importance of commanding the room and commanding a group. And I think it's like that sweet spot, right? Nobody, male, female, young, old, whoever, wants that coach. I mean, I guess I can't speak for everyone. I don't want that coach. And from my experience, I don't think people do, of like, that's obviously trying too hard.
Yes.
It's just like rah and like,
oh God, kill me
it's
now.
like,
on the whistle,
oh my God, I couldn't even listen. Yeah.
The voice always ends up sounding like this somehow.
Yes, like it's in your face. It doesn't come off authentic. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you like almost overcompensating for?
Straight up.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't work if you're the meek, quiet. Like they're NFL athletes.
Yep.
And so, it's finding that sweet spot. This goes back to like the preparedness, the organized side. If you know what you're talking about, if you know your demos are good, if you're confident in your program and why every single thing is in there and can communicate why it's in there.
Yep.
If you're confident that your session design is on point, like the flow of it and the organization of the drills and we talked about this yesterday of like from wall drills to, a harness drill to a sled to a more chaotic drill or whatever the layout is. But if it's thought through intentionally and you're like, all right, I have put in the work way back to like, and we need to get back to your question of mentorship versus traditional, but like I put in the work like way back to like the books of like reading about the freaking Krebs cycle, which I don't know if we need to know about the Krebs cycle, but reading about
Shout
that.
out to Krebs.
Shout out to Krebs everywhere.
Yeah. From that all the way to like, I've practiced my drills, whatever. If you're 1,000% confident in everything that you're doing, you're going to show up that way and you're going to be equipped to command the room.
Yep.
I think that whether people trust you plays a role in whether you can command the room. Again, if you lose people, it doesn't matter how commanding you are on that day. If they don't believe in what you're doing or believe in what you're saying, they're like, all right, it doesn't matter how good you are that one time if you've lost.
They're gonna be like, I'm just gonna go train a collective.
Yeah. I'm just gonna call Tim.
You can't lose the locker room, right? Like you cannot. And so they can smell, is that the right analogy?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like confidence or fear.
Yep.
If you're fearful, that's not going to go over well. You need to be confident. And then I think that it's everything from your tone of voice, from saying things to the whole group, and then coaching like individuals on, that's a whole nother thing of like how to coach a session, but like coaching an individual on how they like to be coached. You don't like to be coached the same way that Zach does, and so on. And so that all plays a role in like your overall command and management of the group. I think that it's so important to have a mix of fun and seriousness.
Totally.
Like, all right, we have to get the work done, but like, this isn't like, I've seen coaches that are so strict in their sessions that they like suffocate all the personalities out of the athletes in your group. And that doesn't work well. And then you see on the other side of like, I once had an intern say that they were watching a session and it looked like the coach was a substitute teacher. And I'm like,
oh, I've seen that.
Right?
I've had interns, I'm like, hey, listen, especially in the beginning, I'm like, you're leading the dynamic warm-up, you're doing a thing. And it's just like, not even 30 seconds in, they're saying the stuff like this.
Like, you wanna do
and they're
this?
like
Nah.
half demo, right. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then within 5 minutes, it's just like, no one's listening.
no one's listening.
They're doing their own version of whatever,
Yeah.
And you don't care. I think it's like a time and place too with that like more laid back approach and then tightening things up.
Agreed.
And then I'm sure every one of your NFL combine groups is probably different. Of some you need to be more on top of, and others it's
sure.
like these are vets. They know what they're supposed to do, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to be a chameleon.
100%. And
You know, it might not, this may come as a surprise to both of you and everyone listening, but school was not my best. I didn't give my best effort in the time that I had there. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, actually most of the time, I would show up and I would have a presentation and I would be unprepared, right? And I'd have to
He's a
get up
yapper though. He probably crushed it.
well, I could wing just about anything. Which is why I credit not doing homework to being able to wing most things now as an adult. Do not recommend that. But I'm unprepared. I didn't read the assignment, whatever. And now I have to get up in front of the class.
right.
And I have to give a presentation. And I imagine that's like what walking through hell feels like. My hands are sweating. I'm a ginger, so my face and neck get red. Anytime I'm thrown off a little bit off kilter. So not only am I feeling it, everyone sees that I'm feeling it. So now I'm feeling it more. And all of us are uncomfortable. And I obviously didn't do the work, right?
Yeah.
That to me reminds me a lot of what you just talked about in terms of, now on the other end, if by a miracle I was interested in whatever the assignment was.
Watch out.
And I dove in. I would show up.
Like, who needs to be prepared?
Oh my God. And they're like, who is this fucking kid, right? I would nail
Talking
it.
about the Krebs cycle. I'm fired up.
Really passionate about it.
Yeah, Krebs for life.
This is how many ATPs.
Yeah, and so, but, you know, and to your point about being prepared, I think that's one of those things that like gets thrown around. And it's like, it does become kind of like a part of the rah-rah speech where it's like, you gotta be prepared. And you know what I'm saying? But really, like,
You do.
You have
you
to.
need
Yeah.
do it. And it's not even like, I feel like some of these things get placed on a pedestal, and it obviously it's important. But to me, when I see that, it's like, well, no shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's more
Yeah.
no duh
Yeah.
than
For sure.
like something that's like this, like crystal, like, you know, magic crystal or something
right.
like that.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Would you ever? So I did this. I was kind of a loser intern, I guess, but I would. We did the same warm up every day for basketball. So on my own time during the workout, I would practice it and like pretend I was, so that way I had it memorized. And so, you know, the one day when they called you to do it, you wouldn't be the big whisperer. I don't know what's going on. Did you ever do stuff like that?
Yes. We were encouraged to like coach our fellow interns on downtime. So we would get hurdles out or whatever it is and practice something so basic like a linear hurdle hop and how to coach it and how to demo it. And it's like you realize that it's simple, but it's actually not easy. And if I, again, fall or don't stick my landing, I'm going to lose people. And so, yes, we would in downtime, like just reps of coaching. And we talk about grad school. It's like, I feel like that's one of the most valuable parts of that is just like hours and hours of reps coaching and of like thinking, all right, how did that session go? I was way too wordy or
These exercises clustered up.
Exactly.
Like,
So I think that we called it like coach the coach, like coach each other and like
You were coaching them up.
Ooh.
yes.
I like that. You wouldn't be surprised, like how many interns and stuff.
Moving on.
Yeah, you guys are ridiculous. I'm still blown away by her bounds yesterday, so we're gonna stay on that.
Okay.
So I can't get over like how many interns or people will have come in that want to be strength and conditioning coaches, and then I'll always lead them through like the warm up of what our athletes do, so I can coach them and they can coach the athlete. And the amount of kids that want to be like high performance coaches and can't ace skip or jump rope or whatever, but like they're strong.
Yes.
And I feel like athletes don't even care if you're strong or not, but if you can move and look
100%.
athletic, like you have them like that.
Yes.
Especially like a skill sport, like with football or basketball or anything like that. Like if you can move and jump and sprint, then people are like, okay, now I get it.
Yes. We would put with an intern training program that they would go through, right? And it was like
I need to do that.
Yeah, there was like
That's brilliant.
4 phases that they would go through, like depending on how long the internship was. But it was so interesting to your point, Zach, of like some would do it and you'd come in and like we would basically say like, obviously we can't make you do anything, but like do the program.
Yeah.
Because there's everything in here from exactly what you just said, bounding to the dynamic warm-ups, field drills, change of direction, decel work, and then of course the weight room stuff. But we would say exactly that. Most of you are probably super comfortable with squatting, deadlifting, whatever it was. I would guess that majority of you couldn't just absolutely crush an acceleration session yet. And you don't need to be able to, but that's hopefully
why you're here.
Yeah.
And some athletes you would just see like over there just
Doing their deadlift, bench, squat,
they're still just bench pressing every day. And I'm like, okay, I mean, to each their own, but from my perspective, you're not taking full advantage of the internship and why you're here. And it's okay to be bad at things. And I think that's a whole other conversation is like, something that it's okay now at any stage of your career to admit that you don't know something or to change something mid-phase. And like, I actually don't like how this isn't getting the effect that I want it to or whatever it is. I'm going to switch it up.
Yep.
And that's something that I also was not shy to do with my NFL athletes of like, all right, I have watched football since I was young. I'm familiar with the game. I never played football, not at all. Like I played soccer and other sports, but there isn't female American football. I mean, I think there is kind of like a couple versions now, but like I definitely did not play football. And so I don't know the sport or the positions as well as the athlete does. How could I? And so I would design one, I would ask a lot of questions at the beginning of every offseason to the guys coming in of like, what went well last year? What do you want to get? What do you want to work on? What do you think you were lacking? Whatever it is. I would ask questions about their position of like, remind me again what you think are like the top 3 things that separate you. I worked with Josh Allen, not the quarterback. He's actually changed his name.
The defensive end, he changed his name.
Yes, which is actually hilarious because I worked with his sister when I was at Louisville. She played basketball there.
Oh, wow.
And her name's Maisha. She went by both of her last names, Hines Allen, and he always went by Allen.
Interesting.
And
so it was always an option for him.
Yes, and he, I guess, had always just been that.
He didn't want to write the hyphen in the rest of that
exactly.
shit.
Yeah, that's a lot of letters.
Relatable.
Yeah.
So I'm Zach and not Zachary.
Yeah.
Efficient, concise,
Yeah, exactly.
to the point.
There you go. But I would ask Josh, like, what are 5 things from a performance standpoint that are going to move the needle for you? Like, you're already one of the best, if not the best at your position. Like, what can we... Sometimes you think about these guys like, what really can we do other than not break you?
Yeah.
To like get you better. You know what I mean? But
They'll tell you.
Yeah, I would ask him like, what do you want to work on? And I worked with him one-on-one, but in my group, I would do things like, we actually talked about this a little bit yesterday. Like one of my favorite acceleration session designs with these guys was we would warm up, dynamic warm up, whatever, thorough. And then we would do a heavy sled march to work on patterning and positions and all that. We would do a light sled bound to work on power over frequency and stride length and all that. And then they would do a free sprint, like a flying 10 basically. And how I would design the flying 10 was I would set up a couple different sets of gates, obviously the 10 yards apart, but before both of the gates, there would be a big box like with cones. And I would say to the guys, you can do, because I would have like a skill group and a bigs group. And I would say to them, you can do, even within a skill group, right? You'd have receivers, safeties, DBs, maybe even some linebackers, like depending on how the groups were made up. And so I would say to them, do whatever position specific movement that you want that you do on the field in this box before flying through the gates.
Nice.
And they would get a time.
That was really good.
So fun. Yeah. So much more engaging for them too.
They would get a time for their flying 10, right? So they could be competitive with themselves and with each other. And it was still from a session flow standpoint, I could keep control of the rest periods in between the march and the bound and the sprint. And keep everyone organized, but they had a ton of creativity. And sometimes they would even pair up like receiver and DB.
Oh, sick.
To react off of each other or whatever it was before flying through the gate. So they're all getting a similar, almost exact stimulus, right, of the session.
Yeah,
and
you're getting the stimulus.
Yes, we're achieving our goal of the day, but they have a running back would run with a ball. And so they would have creativity to do what they wanted. And so the reason why I bring this up is I was not shy to say, I don't know your position as well as you do. Here's what we're going to achieve today. And here's like the session design. You guys have complete creativity over this part. And I would obviously learn from that of like, all right, what are the running backs almost always?
It's so smart. It gives you some like vulnerability with them as well. Not being like a know-it-all. And like, show me in your world what it's about and then how I can help you. And like talk about buy-in. Like exactly. It shows that like it's not just like, this is my program, this is what we're gonna do. You're like, yo, I'm open for ideas.
Exactly.
On the fucking whistle.
Exactly.
We talked a ton about competition yesterday in the Train 'em Up series, episode 2 with Natalie Kollars. Go check it out. Should be dropping in a few days after you hear this. Can you speak to how you layer competition in with your athletes and why you feel it's important and how it impacts training sessions?
Yes. I think it's important with athletes. I think it's important with general population in certain ways, obviously being careful,
Right.
and
Maybe
mindful.
not fly 10s with a 30-yard bulldog.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that competition brings out the best in all of us. I haven't really met one client that I've worked with that even if they don't think they're going to like it, that they didn't like it.
Right.
And that you weren't like, wow, you're having way more fun than you were before we did this. Like,
I think even your worst client likes to compete.
Absolutely.
You do some little metric and people are like, all right, let's do that one more time.
Yeah, that was
Exactly.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
Can we do that next week?
Yeah, exactly. So I think I layer it in so many different ways, whether it's like at the end of a dynamic warm up and we're doing like a fast fire foot drill or something, like rather than just lining them up and doing, on my command, drop, go, whatever, having like, I'd put a mini band in between like the two of us, which I would win obviously if we were doing this, but like I would put a mini band in between us and I would give and everyone, so like paired up with a mini band in between, give them a drop call for like drop to their base position, give them a go call for the foot fire, and then give another go call to snatch the mini band.
Let's go.
And people are like shouting.
Yes.
Like, the
vibes are
The intent goes
immaculate.
through the roof.
The
Exactly.
fucking vibes are immaculate. I'm here for the
Exactly.
vibes in the training session.
It takes it from here to here right away. And people are like, all right, let's get after this session.
Yeah.
And I think that even if it's not in the plan for a day, if you notice people are flat, if you notice people are tired, whatever it is, throwing something like that, as simple as it is, into a dynamic warm up can like change the dynamic of the day entirely. So something simple like that, something like having the gates out and seeing who runs the fastest flying 10 that day. In like change of direction days, so many different ways to layer
So
it in,
fun.
but so fun. Like you can do a change of direction drill where they're like reacting to you or someone else and then they sprint out of it and that's it. Or you can have them do like a reaction to you or to each other, and then they're racing towards something that they have to grab and then finish through a finish line.
Yeah.
And it's entirely different. Like the drill's not even the same. Yeah, one of my favorite like memories of running that group is those days where you had so much competition layered into it that you would have, like, I would do, like, these are the teams for the whole day. Like, these 10 guys, team 1, team 2, whatever. Give yourself a team name. And, like, we have 4 drills and we're keeping track, or 5 drills, and we're keeping track of points with, like, everything.
Hell yes.
And the,
so awesome.
competition and the, like, dynamic and the, like, shit talking
The
and
best.
all that.
It's the best.
Is, like, you just can't, you can't get the same level of intent and buy-in and all that without it. I just really don't think of there's a better way.
And those sessions fly by. I
Fly
feel like
by.
when you do a competition, every little thing, then you're like, oh God, we're done.
Exactly.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
And like the way I think about it is like I want my professional, high school, collegiate, especially group training programs, I want it to feel like fucking summer camp.
Yes.
I really do. And obviously keep the main thing. We're here to get better.
Which you can do both,
You
right?
absolutely can. It doesn't have to be rigid and it doesn't have to, fit, some archetype of necessarily of like how it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And you can pivot, at any time.
100%.
I just love that so much. Like we'll train. We want to train with you, Natalie.
Let's.
Like
Sign us up.
sign us
Yes.
up.
Yes.
Sign me up.
Yeah. And the weight room, you can do the same stuff too, right? With whether it's with Kaiser numbers or we talked about jump mats or whatever
Dude,
it is.
I was a big hater on jump mats for the longest time. I was like,
jump
and
into
I would
it.
just be like, you know what? I'm just going to measure distance and that's how we'll compete there.
Yep.
Or like, I'll just get the Vertec out.
Yes.
And we're going to do 10 approach jumps.
Yep.
Who's going to get the highest?
Yep. 100%.
And I was just like, okay, here's your reach. Who's going to,
Yep.
And, but then, shout out, shameless plug, Plyomat. What I was able to do, because I love plyos and I think it's something that's probably relatively underutilized in a lot of training programs,
Sure.
is like, oh, I can make this.
Gamify it.
Oh, fuck
Yeah, right.
So it's like, you have to jump a certain distance bare minimum.
Yeah.
Everyone has to jump this distance, but who can get off the mat the quickest?
100%.
Yeah. Or you have to be able to jump a certain height, but and ground contact time is really the one that's worked the best. The only other way that it's worked, where it's like, it makes sense and I'm not getting too cute, is vertical jump height with a percentage of with weighted jumps.
Yes.
With a percentage of body weight.
Love that.
Yeah. So I'll tell them that, and they're like, oh, the playing field's level.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's gonna jump the highest, dude?
100%. Like the playing field was level with our sprints.
So awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get into your transition from doing all this incredible work you've done, from NFL offseason training to working with ordinary people to just the entire of your professional career to now Fortis. So, first of all, what is Fortis?
Yep.
Tell the people.
Yep.
And then what does the transition look like from everything we've talked about up to this point to now Fortis?
Yep. So Fortis is, the meaning, so when I was deciding what I wanted my company to be called, or my brand to be called, I wanted it to be one word. I wanted it to be easy to say, easy to read. I didn't want my name in it. I didn't want performance in it. And so that didn't leave me with, it took me a long time.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. And you talk to some people and they're like, oh, it doesn't matter what your business is called. It's what you do and whatever. And I'm like, I think it matters. This is going to be something that people either identify with or...
It's called branding.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. It's something that
Welcome to my TED Talk. It's like this, for instance.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
What does Fortis mean?
Yeah, so Fortis means strong, courageous, mighty. Yeah, and I think that it's
find that word?
It's so funny because I was looking through Googling definition for thing.
Yeah.
What exactly? What do I
synonyms
and a
for...
lot of and a lot of English words are just overused now.
Yeah.
Like ignite. Sorry if your company's called Ignite.
Yeah, get wrecked.
But
boom. Stupid name.
I feel like so many that I looked
pumpkin
up.
spice latte. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, I just thought that it's too. There's just too. It's too overdone.
Yeah.
So one of my friends was like, "You should start looking into Latin words."
God, I took Latin in high school, and you took it.
You can't use it now.
I like it.
Actually, it's copyright.
I was about to say,
I'm gonna make
you trademark that already?
I'm gonna call it Z Fortis.
The fucking badass. Because I was gonna ask you, I was gonna cover the mic and be like, "Do you got that trademark?"
Yeah, no, and so it's so funny because, we'll get there with the transition and whatever and things like that I've learned, but that was one of them of it makes sense, obviously, right? Someone stole my idea. You need to trademark, copyright things, whatever. But that was one thing that I'm like, I need to do this that I didn't initially think about of you need to, trademark, copyright this name so that you don't build an entire brand and then someone
sues you for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can. What was your question?
So, okay,
what is Fortis?
What is Fortis?
Yes. So that's the name of it. It is a high performance company. And that doesn't necessarily just mean elite athletes. It doesn't mean high performance just in sports. I guess the landscape of my company right now is 80% online and 20% in-person training still. Online right now, I have one offering, which is an online, of course it's online. It is a one-on-one training and nutrition, custom training and nutrition program.
Nice.
And the online space will evolve to more mentorship stuff and things like that as well. But right now it's the one offering, and then still in-person coaching with NFL, general population, youth athletes. So that's kind of the landscape of Fortis right now.
So my next question is why?
Yep.
So why the transition and what drove you to take the leap?
Yep. I think that I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Mm-hmm. I think I said to Zach yesterday that one of my favorite podcasts, other than the Coach 'Em Up podcast, obviously,
Thank you.
is
Thank you for correcting
called How I Built This. And it's a podcast. The host's name is Guy Raz.
Okay.
And he interviews successful entrepreneurs, and it's all people that have already like made it. So they're years into their journey. He interviews people like the creator of the Ring doorbell and Dyson vacuums and all that. And it's so interesting to hear these people's stories because they have failed so many times and changed course, and some went bankrupt or close to it. And, and then ending up where they are. And so that's for several years now, something that I've listened to. And that's just because obviously there's a million podcasts that you can listen to. That's just been something that's like, I've always been drawn to learning about like how to become a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah. It's a new challenge.
It's a new challenge.
Can I ask you personal? I mean, it's not too personal, but
Taste.
you've done the damn thing in the training world. Like you've done it at like pretty much that you have at a high level for a long time.
Sure.
Was you getting a little bored or just unfulfilled?
So no, I wouldn't say that, but I had achieved what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's like almost there's never like a perfect time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, at some point you have to make that leap.
Yeah.
Well, what did we talk about yesterday? I guess you don't have to. Yeah, for sure.
But you're driven.
Yeah. If you want to do it, you need to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that there is so much benefit from there's nothing wrong with working for a professional team, a college team, a large company. Like that's great. And I think that I actually really valued for sure working in a small private startup out in LA for like D1 college sports, and then for obviously a big corporation.
Right.
And I think that having those different experiences, I was like, all right, this is now time to like do it. And there's certain things that you'll miss from each place that you're a part of, right? But it then ends up like fueling you take the lessons that you learned in one place and you're able to, I'm able to now put them into my business. And so, yeah, I've definitely already learned, just like, any new place that you're a part of or thing that you're doing, I've already learned so much since like officially launching 3-4 months ago.
Wow, it's that young.
It's that young. Yeah. So
you're in it right now.
So
dude.
I left. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yes. So I left. I don't know if you can tell this about me, but I'm kind of a perfectionist. And so I left Exos in July, and I hired a girl to do my branding.
Great.
She was awesome. Again, it was like, it took a while at the beginning. I like kept emailing her being like, I haven't decided on the name yet. Sorry for slowing down the process.
So
but I'm like, I'm not going to just like jump into
pick a name just to pick one.
Yeah. So when I obviously had to, finally pick the name, and then went through that process, went through the trademark, all that. And then, just spent several months working on like the behind the scenes of the website design with her, brand, colors, fonts, all of that. And then really getting down to like, okay, so what exactly do I want to offer? How do I want to start with the mentorship stuff? Do I want to start with the coaching stuff? What do I want this to look like? And so, it's new. I announced the brand name in January, that end of January, beginning of February, and then actually launched, just about 4 months ago. Wow. So it's such a rewarding experience going through it.
It's hard.
So stressful though, huh?
It is. I think
it is.
It is. But I think that it's like, so much of life is just like how you decide to view
approach
things,
it.
right? It's
Yeah.
like,
You got to view like the long game. Like if you're trying to make like a quick buck right out of the chute, like good luck. It's going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I started my online thing, I was like, dude, so many people are going to buy it. I made the announcement. Everyone's like, dude, I'm going to get it. First week, one program sold.
Yeah, right.
One.
Sure.
I'm like, dude, what am I even doing?
Right.
Fuck.
I'm like, I want to quit. I'm a loser. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Gotta stay the course.
Yeah, for sure. You do though. Yeah, you absolutely do.
Though you have experience building, I mean, you've just look at your career. You have experience building an incredible career in training.
Appreciate that.
And then equally, well, I wouldn't, it depends on what you value, but in my opinion,
Yep.
what you've done on social media, I mean, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you built that. You know?
Social media is such an interesting beast. Like, I think that it can be great if you use it in a positive way.
Totally.
I think that, like anything on the internet, it's interesting for our field because anyone can create a page and anyone can post about anything.
Give their opinion.
And give their opinion in the comments, like we were talking about yesterday. And there's not necessarily like this level of like validity to things or like verification of like whether
If you have an
what
email
I'm-
address, you can start.
Exactly. Which maybe is like not a great thing, but on the other side, it's like this incredible platform that allows us to connect from Scottsdale to Austin.
Right.
And yeah, like my clients, my online clients, a part of Fortis, are from all over the world. Like I have clients in
cool.
New Zealand and Amsterdam,
cool, isn't it?
and whatever. It's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
and that likely, I mean, obviously I have a company website, but a lot of my business comes through social media and the ability to connect with people from all over the world. And so that's just wouldn't be possible to that level without it. And so if it's used correctly, I think that it's a great tool.
When did you first start, like, pick up the camera and you're like, all right, I'm going to start doing this?
Yep.
And then what are some things, like, I know some people get discouraged, like people are going to think this is dumb or whatever.
Yep.
When did you start and then what makes you keep doing it, obviously?
Yeah. I think that it's like anything. It was a really good representation of what you put into something is what you get out of it.
Yeah.
And I had been dabbling in social media for such a good word.
It is.
Been dabbling in social media for years. Like I had an account. I don't even know when I started my Instagram, but definitely had one when I was out in LA. And so that's whatever. That's 8-10 years ago. So I've been using the platform for a long time. When I first got to Exos, I would post like, here and there. But not consistently. And then it was the beginning of what year are we? It's like the beginning of 2022, I think, 2020, whatever it was. Then I'm like, all right, I'm actually going to like post every single day. I'm going to create as much content to just share organically, like my approach to training, what I'm doing in my coaching sessions, in my personal training sessions, like of my own. But I'm just, rather than like having it and barely using it, I'm going to actually like post every single day and
Be all about it.
Be intentional. Be all about it. Be intentional about how I'm posting, what I'm posting, and all that. And it is just the reward of it was it started to grow. And again, it just goes back to like what you put into it is what you get out of it. And as soon as I kind of decided like, all right, this is something that I do think is a valuable tool. I want to take advantage of using it and sharing and connecting with people. And so, yeah, put more effort in and you get more out of it. I think that, yeah, it's fun to share. It's fun to be able to read posts of other people. And yeah, keep up with people in our industry that you don't live in the same country or city or state or whatever, but you're able to connect with.
So many people ask, and this comes up all the time on the show, so forgive us if this is the 10th millionth time, but like people ask us all the time, we get DMs, I'm sure you do, how'd you get to where you're at? Or how did you get started on social media or whatever? And I feel like the common thread with people who are where you're at now is like, at some point you just have to start.
Yep.
So
Gotta
that's step
commit to
one.
it.
Yep.
You have to be okay with being shitty at it and just not really, you know, and sometimes like I didn't even know it was bad. Like I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty, I like this, you know? And I look back and I'm like, that was bad, you know? But
it's like looking at your first training session that you coached.
totally.
You're like,
Yikes. It was all over the place.
sorry to the athletes.
Right. Yeah. RIP. But like, and then another piece that you said is, so you made it through that phase, and then you were consistent. And man, when you're starting a business and training clients all day long, and you've got a social and a personal life, and you're trying to balance all those things, I think people really underestimate how much time and effort goes into creating good, thoughtful content.
Yes.
Where you're bringing value to people. Can you talk about navigating that?
Yeah. I think that I agree with everything that you just said. I think that it's also important to not overthink and just share. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. It's funny, the first video for me that quote unquote went viral was a supine banded like hip flexion, like basically like a single like exchange essentially. But the difference of it was I was coaching in the video. So you could hear me explaining it. And my views went through the roof for that video. And it was funny because it was a Saturday, I think. And the only reason I remember that is because I didn't have anything to post. I was like scrolling through my photos.
just
being
old
like,
one.
okay.
Gotta get
Like,
something up. Yep.
And this was in like the thick of me being like, I'm posting every day. So I'm like, dang it, I don't have anything to post. And I posted that and it went crazy. And I was like, what the heck?
Yes.
This exercise, I've talked about force plates. I've talked about the force velocity curve.
Lowest level,
I've talked about
Preach.
whatever. And I'm like, I'm laying on the ground doing a hip core activation exercise.
Yes.
This is not exciting at all. But it was different and that I was coaching in it and people love that. And so I think that it's being intentional and it's also not overthinking. It's having the goal of sharing small or big ideas. The overthinking part is, I think, what paralyzes a lot of people of like, this has to be perfect and someone might make a mean comment about it and all that.
What if I leave out this one detail?
Yes. And you can't worry about that. And I think that's another thing too, that like, obviously with social media, we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, is like, you have to not worry about those people that are like, well, why would you do a supine?
Tuck your chin.
Tuck your chin. Exactly. You can't worry about that. And you have to have the mindset of, this is a snapshot of something that I'm doing, that one of my clients, my athletes is doing, that I'm sharing. It's not the whole context. There isn't going to be a whole context behind it. It's not going to be, I'm not only going to share.
This is better than that. This is the only thing I do.
I'm not only going to share perfect reps.
Right.
I'm going to share a bad rep that I did. Or I remember doing like a rotational row in one of my posts, and someone commenting like, you know, you should be getting more hip internal rotation, whatever. And I was like, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I also don't have more hip internal rotation. And so
Trust me, I wish.
Exactly.
Listen, buddy.
Could you coach me? Do you have a way for me to get more?
Yeah, come coach me up.
And so, you just comment back or not, but comment back and say like, yeah, absolutely. Like ideally I would, I don't. And I'm still going to do this exercise because I'm still benefiting from it.
Yeah. Or you can comment back, I'm going to find you and kill you in your sleep.
That's what Tim does.
It is.
I think you do a good job of being like authentic to yourself, as far as like, you know, the things you're really good at, which is coaching verbally and then once again demoing. And so you're really good at those things. So why wouldn't you share those? You're not trying to be somebody you're not.
Yes.
I guess you're not like, and some people in their bag is explaining a huge diagram on a whiteboard. But yours is like coaching cues and exercise demos, and I think that's worked pretty well. So I think find what you're good at.
It's such a good point of like, share, try to be authentically you.
Another something you touched on, I think, is another shared coach experience or even content creator experience, where it's like the thing that you just felt like it was just the layup, like you didn't really get to invest in it. Those are always the ones that do the best. I swear, the amount of time I take in to craft something that's like articulated well, that is really
Never
clear,
does well.
it always does dog shit numbers. And then I'm just like, it's just like a video of me and one of my NFL athletes, and they're just doing one single movement. I'm like, squats are cool. And people are like, fuck yeah, they are.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's like 10,000 likes and
Yes.
NFL reshared it. And like, I'm like, what am I doing?
Yes, totally.
But
I think there's some of that too, and to the point of like not getting discouraged or not to build an audience, to build a following, you need to be consistent. You need to be okay with posting imperfect things and all that, which I think a lot of people get so far and then stop. And there's also the sort of frustrating side of the app itself and the algorithm and things like that.
Almighty algo.
So yeah, it's like you have to be okay with just because your post didn't do so well doesn't mean it's not good content. It doesn't mean you're not sharing good information.
100%.
Doesn't mean you're a worthless
And that's not what it's about either, right?
That's exactly right. And I think it's so important, to your point, Zach, of like sharing what you're good at or what is authentic to you versus chasing the likes and chasing the all that, because weird things do well on social media. And so I think that that's also important when people are starting out or wanting to build a brand and a following, is like, no matter whether you're gaining traction or not, continue to just post about who you are, what you do, and don't think of like what's going to be the best, what's going to go viral. It's like at some point,
likes?
Yeah.
exactly, that if we start chasing that, then that's not.
And you want to talk about taking something that's already brutal and making it more brutal. Assign your worth to that.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
subconsciously, I've found myself multiple times throughout my career doing that.
Of course you have.
It's hard not to. When
It's
you
hard not to.
care
Bad
about
place.
something
Tim was in
and
a
you
very
want
bad
it to do
place.
well. Yeah,
Very dark place.
But you care, and you
Yes.
want things to go well, and it's
And we'd be
constantly-
lying if we said that we didn't enjoy when a post goes well.
Yeah, it's
of course
sweet.
you do.
Yes.
don't even care.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just make it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Paying it forward.
All right, so we have exceeded time technically, but
Perfect.
honestly, we've just been having so much fun. This is fun.
We make our own rules. We're going to overtime.
overtime for
Perfect.
dollars with a K. All right, so Natalie, we've got some segments you want me to do.
Yeah, you do the first one.
All right. Okay. So this first segment is called Three Things. This segment is brought to you by Squat Wedgies. Squat Wedgies, the best damn squat wedgies on the planet.
Okay.
Use code
Coach him at 15.
Use code CoachHimUp15 for 15% off at discount. Okay, Natalie. So, three things. What it's all about
Yes.
is think about where you're at right now.
Sure.
The things you've been through to get to where you're at. What are three things that you would like to impart on a young coach who wants to be where you are? What would those three things be?
Okay. Great question. Find a mentor or mentors that you can learn from, fail in front of, and get advice. And not just from like a being a better coach standpoint. Like find someone that you relate to as a person as well. Because I mean, it's something that we've talked about today. We're people, obviously, and coaches, and it's important to develop who you are as a person, to be a better coach. And it's important for us to learn about the person behind the athlete. So finding a mentor that can help you become a better coach and a better person, super important. You don't need 10 mentors, but you definitely need at least one good one. Two would be put in the hours and be obsessed with getting better at your craft. Like you have to love it.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Like
You're one and
there's
two.
no,
Get out of my brain now.
there is no substitute for that feeling of running a session and thinking like, dang it, that didn't go well.
Yeah.
Like, until you've run a session that you didn't think went that well, you can't get better.
Yeah.
There's no substitute for putting in the hours and just learning, failing, getting better, trying new things, all that. You have to, like, boots on the ground, put in the work, and be absolutely obsessed with getting better. At all stages of your career too. Not like, okay, I'm an intern, I'm going to be obsessed with getting better and now I've made it.
Right.
But thinking like, okay, I'm a new business owner. Like, what can I get better at? And being obsessed with, okay, maybe I'm less obsessed with sets and reps, but now I'm obsessed with how can I help more people through my online business? How can I make a bigger impact on people's lives through my company? How can I reach young coaches? Whatever it is. So continuing to be obsessed with progress and being the best you can be at all stages. And then third would be, if you have a goal and the door basically gets shut in your face of like, nope, that's not happening, don't walk the other way. Continue to get better, advocate for yourself, find people that will advocate for you to at some point still go through that same door, because it's possible. And so many people, I think, are scared of failure, right? It's like, whether it's scared of trying to grow your social media and it doesn't go well, and so you stop. Like, most people fail because they stop.
Yeah. So true. It's a war of attrition out there, y'all.
Yes. I took a business course. I was telling Zach, I took a business course. Sorry, this is another tangent. It's like time's probably ticking.
No, you're good.
No. Run it up.
We're in overtime.
Perfect. You got to be able to perform under pressure.
Exactly.
Right.
Time. Okay, so I took a business course because as I got closer to launching Fortis, I thought, okay, I'm confident in who I am as a coach, what I can offer, all of that. My branding's done, my website's done. I'm like ready to launch, but I'm like, ugh, like, I've never run a business before. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm confident from the business side in everything that I'm planning on doing. So I took a business course. It was super valuable. I learned a lot, and I'm so glad that that's part of the reason why my business the launch got pushed back. But I'm so glad that I did it right sort of the first time. Not to say that it's perfect by any means, and it'll continue to evolve, but I'm glad I took that time. Anyways, one of the biggest things that I learned in that course is just what I mentioned is, like, most people fail because they stop. Most people think they're going to get 500 clients online, like Zach might have thought, and they get one and then they stop. Yeah. Versus like, okay, why do I think I'm getting one client? It's okay for people to say no. I'm just going to continue to share what I have to offer, and the people that it's the right fit both ways will be attracted to that. And so, yeah, I think the having a goal, and whether that door opens right away or not, which often it does not, it's important to continue to work towards whatever that goal is and not let someone saying no or telling you no make you feel fearful or steer you away from continuing to pursue that goal.
Just don't quit. I feel like when you want to quit, that's probably when the majority of other people want to quit.
Lean in.
So if you just don't, you're probably be all right.
Yeah. Nailed it. That was awesome, Natalie.
Yeah. Okay.
Next segment is by Plyomat, the best damn plyomat in the world.
It is.
Okay.
Use code CoachEmUp5, gets 5% off. Great plyomat.
Great.
Get it. Got
Fantastic.
it. Good.
To try it out.
You will.
Okay.
Rant and a rave. Anything you want to rant about, and then you can come around and rave about anything you want to do. Maybe your time in Austin with the great podcast, all that kind of stuff.
That's right. How cool Tim and Zach are.
Yeah, but like whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
but,
it doesn't have to be that.
We'll start with your rant. Anything could be industry, life, whatever.
Okay. Wow. My rant is going to be people that rant.
Nice.
So back to social media. I think that it can happen everywhere, but it's like just kind of like in your face with certain people on social media, of like the tone of constantly complaining about things in our industry. It's like, it's so easy to complain or point out things that are wrong or whatever it is. Yeah, and I just don't love those pages that you're like, oh, what are they complaining about today?
Right.
Rather than like, you don't need to start your post or whatever it is with like, I hate this, or when people do this and I do it better this way.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you can just take that out and start with, I love doing this
Here's
this
how
way
yeah.
because I believe in X, Y, and Z. That's not my favorite. So
I totally get that.
That'd be my
Just get the
rant.
negativity out here, especially if you
Yeah.
don't have a solution. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Or people, maybe this is kind of like a sidebar, but like people that call other people out on social media,
Yeah.
but they're not actually like, they don't name them. And you're like, I know who you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're kind of just being like an internet bully, and like, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, that's soft.
Yeah, I don't
Say their
love
name.
it. Yeah, I don't.
Say my name.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's my rant.
And then Rave, something positive, something you really like that's
positive.
going on in the world today.
In the world,
World,
sports
coaching
performance,
world,
yeah,
whatever. That is the world.
Something, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Something that I actually like, I think that's changing in our industry a little bit is not just testing to test, but like testing to do something with the data
Yeah.
and not just, yeah.
We just test the verticals to test
Yeah,
the verticals.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so
we
why?
test.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Decision driven.
Right. Yeah. So like only testing thing, because it takes a lot of time out of your sessions to assess things if you're not going to use them. And if it's not also a potent training stimulus, then like you're just using this time to jump on a force plate, but you're not doing anything with the numbers. If you are, great.
Yeah.
Yes.
But maybe we choose like 3 things, 5 things that we're testing, monitoring, whatever, that you're actually using to make decisions. And I think that it's going that way. I think maybe when some of the new technology came out, or it became more accessible, people were like, let's test everything, track everything. And then you just end up with a bunch of data that you're
Bunch
like,
of
well,
nothing.
I actually never looked at that.
But we tested.
But we tested. So yeah, I think that's exciting to see more and more of.
Nice, like.
We have one more segment. This
Okay.
segment is called Unsolicited, Solicited Advice.
Okay.
So you get to the airport later today.
Yep.
And you're boarding onto the plane, and you're real excited because you're going to fire up the Karate Kid movie so that you
Yes.
know our
Yes.
Mr. Miyagi reference
Yes.
regarding the peanut butter.
Yes.
And you see someone and they're in a row by themselves. And the first thing you think is like, God damn, good for them. The second thing you think is, I got to tell this person something.
Okay.
And so as you pass by them, you're not sitting in that row. You're just passing by. You're going to lean in and you're going to say, right here, pull out the earbud. And you're
Excuse me,
just going
sir.
to give them some advice.
Okay.
And then you're going to walk away.
Yeah. Got it. I would say, might sound cliche, but think big. And don't put limits on yourself. I think that whether it's society, whether it's coworkers, whether it's people in your like group, family, friends, whatever it is. I guess 2 things. Think big and surround yourself with people that think big, because your circle of people that are close to you matter. And I think that so much of society is just okay with being mediocre and being scared to fail and being scared to go out on your own and start your own business because it is scary. I think that if we had more people that didn't think that way, our world would be better. I think that you can achieve again, a lot of these things sound cliche, but like you can achieve so much more than you think.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get into a routine of life, of day to day, and just kind of think like, okay, this is like who I am and what I'm doing. Another thing that I learned in the business course was like, you need to write out your goals
Yeah.
sounds so simple, but most people, like if you ask 10 people if they actually wrote out their goals for this quarter, this year, 5 years, whatever it is, majority of people don't do that. So write out your goals and make them specific. And then further to that, write out exactly what you want your life to look like. People don't do that, either.
So good.
And it's like, if you're not sure about it, if you haven't written it down, like you're not going to achieve that life. So be clear on exactly what you want your life to look like. And then also be prepared to be that person that's going to have that life. Because the reason why you don't have that yet is because I'm me today and not me in
future,
whatever, 6 months, a year from now, whatever it is. So be super clear on what you want to achieve, what you want your life to look like, and then do the work to become that person to achieve those things. Sounds so simple, but it's
hard.
So hard.
It's hard.
You have to do it.
What you just described is so simple, but so fucking hard to do.
And this is kind of like it goes with this whole like theme. I learned this in the business course as well. It was like, I know,
get the name of this
100%.
course.
Yeah.
It was like half business. It was like, half business, half like kind of what we're talking about of like self-development to be a better business
Your
person.
mentorship program through Fortis is gonna fucking
I can't
rock.
wait.
We need to
so
sign up for
excited.
it.
I'm so excited. That's something we haven't talked a lot about today, but I am so excited for that. One's going to be dedicated just to women. Like one component of the mentorship stuff. One's going to be more like personal training focused, and then one's going to be more strength strength and conditioning coach focused. Super excited. But another thing in this course that I learned is like literally everything that you achieve or don't achieve is up to you. Like it whether you make a certain amount of money, whether you achieve your goals, whether you don't, whether you live in the house you want to or not, is like it's you. It's you,
your fault.
and it's your fault.
Good or
your
bad.
choices, good or bad, is your whether you achieve your goals is 100% up to you. So
Good news and bad news.
Big. Yeah, exactly.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
What a fucking awesome time we've had hanging out with you. Seriously, I think that's great for both of us.
Yes.
Yesterday was so much fun. The workout today, this podcast has been fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly, you can tell when someone comes prepared.
Bam, 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 bam. Type A.
Nailed it.
Let's go.
You freaking nailed it.
Appreciate you guys.
Natalie, where can people find you?
Yep. My Instagram is my name. So Natalie Kollars. My last name is spelled Kollars. We were laughing about this yesterday, but anytime I'm on the phone with someone and I'm trying to say what my last name is, I always tell them that my last name is like dollars, but with a K. Tim liked that.
No, KD.
Exactly. And then my business Instagram, which is something that I'm still learning how to grow, is join-Fortis. And then my website is same thing, www.join-fortis.com.
Guys, you heard her. Natalie Kollars on Instagram. Join-Fortis. Go follow her. Go consume her content because she knows what the fuck she's doing and she's awesome. Natalie, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
everybody.
Thank
you
for
listening. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned because in a few days our training session is going to drop.